everyone, my name is Haley Campbell and this is my oral presentation for the exam 1 for wildlife behavior. So the first question, my apologies that the camera is going to be in the way, apparently that's going to happen for some of the slides, but I'll just kind of talk through them. So for the first part of this presentation, it was asked to discuss Tim Berg's 4 questions. So as one of the fathers of modern animal behavior, Tim Berg gave 4 basic questions that you would think of. So the function question, which was an ultimate, was how does a behavior help animals survive and reproduce? The phylogeny, which I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, is also an ultimate. And it was how has evolutionary history contributed to a behavior? There is causation, which is approximate. How does the body produce a behavior? And then development, which is also approximate. How does the behavior develop and what influences its final form? So there's some version of these questions everywhere on the internet. This is kind of a mixture of what was in the notes versus what was online to kind of give a good, accurate representation. So the next part was the specific examples of Tim Berg's 4 questions. So I myself am a beef cattle producer. I've grown up and worked with beef cattle and spent the past 10 years studying behavior on them. So I did all of my examples in cattle, but you can kind of just change the species and it's a very similar way for wildlife. So the function question I did, why do the bulls bellow and is there an advantage to it? So bulls do this deep grumbling bellow type noise, and I am not going to try to reproduce it because it will not come out right, but it's just like this really like deep rumble. So I'm sure there is a video on YouTube about it. And then so that's kind of what these questions are about. So the phylogeny, again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, was how did this bellow sound evolve over time? Causation was what triggers the bull to bellow. Is it neurological, hormonal, something else? And then the developmental is how does a bull learn to use his bellow over time? Did he learn from watching a bull in the herd when he was younger? Or is it instinctual? Or again, something else? So we have proximate control of behavior involving hormones. So there's 2 different types of control. There's organizational effects and activational effects. Organizational is the influence of hormones during early development. This can lead to permanent changes in the brain and the body of the individual. Again, I used cattle for my example. So I did the implanting of testosterone implants into young calves, especially heifers, to increase weight gain and feed efficiency. So testosterone kind of gives these calves this little boost and helps them grow bigger without eating more, so that's what we want. And we really give it to heifers because heifers are born without testosterone. So the activational effects is the influence of hormones in an adult that temporarily changes the behavior or physiology of the animal. This effect can depend on the presence of a hormone. Again, for the example, I did the testosterone levels in a bull increases when he is around cows that are in heat, such as in breeding season, but they are lowered when he is removed from the cows and placed by himself or with other bulls he already knows, not during breeding season. So when we have cows that are open and we want to breed them, we turn out the bulls with them, and the bulls service them, and so they spend a lot of time doing the deep bellow. They puff up their crest, which is the top of their neck up here. They kind of puff that up big. Sometimes they get into fight matches, even if they've all lived together. Something about it causes them to fight. So testosterone does that. When they are lowered and they're removed from the cows, so either the bull goes live by himself if you only have one, or if you have a group of them that have already been living together, they go way, way, way far away from the cows where they can't smell them and live in that pasture. And usually they don't do nothing for another 10 months or so, but eat and sleep and live a great life. So the main difference between the 2 behavior types is the organizational effects happen early in age and are a permanent change, whereas activational effects happen in adulthood and they are temporary. We have cross-sectional and longitudinal behavior studies. This ended up being 2 slides, so bear with me. Cross-sectional is a method of research that is designated to examine data from multiple individuals at a single point in time. Here is my article, I guess, that I had to put for this one's called The Recent Breakthroughs in Understanding the Cerebellum's Role in Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. So this was a study that was performed for human benefit, but there was animals used in the study. You can see some of how certain impacts have lifelong or partial temporary effects. So the objective, according to the article, was exposure to alcohol during fetal development can lead to structural and functional abnormalities in the cerebellum, a brain region responsible for motor coordination, balance, and specific cognitive function. In the systematic review, we comprehensively analyzed a vast body of research conducted on vertebrate animals and humans over the past 13 years. So the advantage of this cross-sectional study is it's faster and less expensive, but the disadvantage is that you cannot track individuals over time and you can miss data. So on the contrary, we have longitudinal studies. So this is a method of research that is designed to examine the same individuals over time. Again, have another article. This one is called A Prospective Study of Mental Well-Being, Quality of Life, and Human-Animal Attachment and Grief Among Foster Caregivers at Animal Shelters. The objective of this article was the goal of the study were to investigate experiences of foster caregivers at animal shelters based on measures of positive and negative effect, quality of life, grief, and to describe human-animal attachment among foster populations. And then some advantages and disadvantages of longitudinal studies. An advantage is that you can notice changes in patterns of behavior over time, but the disadvantages is that it's expensive and time-consuming. So that article is really cool. It talks about how caregivers can mentally handle the impact of getting attached to an animal and then losing it over and over and over again. So kind of how that works. And then again, how that flips around to the animals and how that works in their brains. So I thought that was a really cool article to read. There are different types of communication. So there's cooperative signaling. So again, I used cattle for this. So the baby calf or the sender calling for its mom, the receiver because it is hungry. The cost to the sender was attention drawn to the calf. This could be from predators and it could be from mom. So it could be both good and bad. Benefits of the sender, so the calf gets fed and nourished by mom. The cost of the receiver would be using energy and resources to make the milk and to find the calf. The benefit of the receiver, it increases their calf survival and releases pressure from the udder. Dishonest signaling, so a cow, the sender pretending to be in heat or estrus to get attention from bulls, the receiver. The cost to the sender is it can lead to excess energy spent from harassment and can lead to injury. Benefits from the sender is it gains attention from the bulls, which is what they wanted. Cost to the receiver is the bulls waste time and energy trying to breed a cow that's not in heat. But their benefits is they get to spend extra time breeding. And if you know bulls, you know that is their favorite thing to do. There's also incidental or cue communication. So a cow, the sender moving through the brush, could alert a predator, a receiver, too small to hunt them. Like a coyote or bobcat cannot take down a cow. So cost to the senders, it increases anxiety and energy spent looking for the predator. There's no benefits to it. They didn't mean to do it. It's not a good thing. It's incidental. Cost to the receivers, energy spent stalking an animal it could not kill when it could be stalking something it can. But the benefits is that it gives it a chance to practice stalking and knowing where its prey is. So spiteful signaling, a cow, the sender, headbutting another cow, the receiver, to display their rank in the herd. The cost to the sender is the risk of energy and injury. I will get this one day. And energy spent. That's a mouthful. Benefits to the sender is it could gain a dominance or provide the dominant. Could be a game in dominance or proving the dominance that they already have. The cost to receiver would also be a risk of injury and energy spent. And the benefits to the receiver, she could defend her position, but most likely it would just cause harm to both parties. So now on to the article that we were asked to read. So in this article by Jagielski, Circum 2021, we were asked what species. And the species were the polar bears, which on the bottom left picture right here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but hopefully you can, that's a polar bear. The sea duck, or the common eider, whatever, the duck, is right here. So these black and white ones, if you can't see my mouse, I'm unsure, is the bottom right picture here. The black and white ones are the males, and the brown ones are the females, and then the picture right here in the middle is their eggs, which is what the study is mainly about. And this was located in Middelburg Island, hopefully, in Nunavut, Canada. I really hope I pronounced all that correctly. Over on the map, you can see the island. My circle may cover it up for y'all, but there is a map there. So, what was the purpose of this study? So, they were noticing that the polar bears were not going out on the ice like they should have been during the season that they should have been out on the ice. Polar bears' main source of food is seals, and they hunt those seals out on the ice and not on land. So the polar bears were foraging on the eggs of the birds, or those ducks. Excuse me, let me go back. It will not let me go back. Anyways, on those common eider ducks, the birds, instead of hunting on the ice. So this was believed to be a response to the declining of their axis of prey, the seals, through the documented sea loss. We all know this is due to global warming, melting sea caps, ice caps, meaning there's less ice for the bears to hunt seals on. So the arrival of the bears back to the land, so if there's nothing for them to hunt on the ice, they have to go back to the land, appears to overlap with the birds' breeding season. The main purpose of this study was to gain a better understanding of the energetic consequences of this behavior. So this is the methodology and calculation, so it looks like a lot, but I promise it's really not. So they used the DJI Phantom 3 Pro and 4 Pro drones to record the polar bears foraging on the eggs from July 10th through the 20th of 2017, approximately midway through their incubation program for the birds. A total of 995 minutes of foraging footage was recorded over 65 different drone flights. The data was separated into distinct foraging bouts. So this represented an observation of a single bear continuously foraging, but it could be composed of one or more flights. The problem with this was the flight time for the drones could only last about 22 minutes or the battery would die. So it was considered a new foraging data set for each of the focal bears when there was a considerable time gap in filming for the focal bear. This is due to changes in the activity or before returning to forage, or having to bring the drone back and replace batteries, so whichever one came first. You can see the mean, median, and statistical range, which also is the standard deviation right there. That is straight off of the article itself. And then 31 distinct foraging bouts were differentiated across the study. They range from a total of 2.85 to 134 minutes each, so depending on the bear itself. I really hope you can read these. So here is the breakdown, basically, of all of the data collected. You can see in calendars. This one here, I believe, was how many eggs were eaten. I can't read these. So sorry. This was the time spent searching, the energy used, and then the energy gained based on how many eggs they ate. So was it really worth it? So the findings and conclusion, this is where we figure out was it really worth it. So the findings was that as the common eider breeding season continued, the polar bears were seen consuming the eggs at a slower rate. Okay. This was due to the bears had eaten most of the eggs already and were spending more time searching for them rather than eating them. I'm not in this camera frame. There was a decrease in energy gain from the egg consumption from the polar bears. And according to the article, it was quoted that by coupling energetic estimates with detailed behavioral data collected through aerial videography, the study provides a quantification of both the benefits and costs of egg consumption of polar bears. So that's a lot of words that don't really have a ton of meaning until you ask the question, okay, what was the answer? So the conclusion to all of this. So the question was was it worth the energy the bears were putting in? Were they getting that out? So here's the answer. The conclusion. Polar bears can get some nutrients from the eggs, but it is only for a limited amount of time and only for a small population of bears. The bears still need to hunt on the ice in order to get the necessary nutrients that they need. So, for a very small population of bears, for a very small amount of time, it was worth it. Overall, it was not. They still needed to go out on the ice and hunt seals. So this is where conservation and all of that plays a part to save our ice caps. This is my